We're going to talk about how the sign of position and the sign of velocity affect the motion of an object. Specifically, we're going to look at the motion of a water jet rider as he moves above and below the surface of the water. And we're going to look at this chart that has positive and negative y values and positive and negative velocities. Let's start with a positive y value and a positive velocity. If we set our origin at the surface of the water and set our positive direction being up, then anything that is above the surface of the water is going to have a positive position, and anything that is moving upward is going to have a positive velocity. And we can graph this as a function of time. Here the jet rider is moving upward, we're going to say at a constant velocity, and since the slope of the position versus time graph is positive, velocity is also going to be positive. We can put all that together and see how the picture aligns with the graphs. Now let's see what happens when the position is negative, but the velocity is still positive. Negative position means below the surface of the water, but a positive velocity means moving upward. So our jet rider is submerged, but making his way towards the surface. When we graph that position as a function of time, we can see that the jet rider is indeed moving towards the surface. And if we assume that position versus time graph is linear, then we would get a constant slope, and that velocity would still be positive. When we put those two together, we see that regardless of whether the jet rider is above or below the surface of the water, positive velocity means moving upward. Now let's see a positive position and a negative velocity. Positive position means above the surface of the water, but negative velocity means moving downward. So here our jet rider is plunging towards the surface of the water. When we graph that versus time, we see that the position is getting closer to the surface of the water as time progresses. But our velocity stays negative that whole time. We can add that to our chart, and when we compare the top right to the top left, both have a position that's above the axis, but we have a negative velocity, which means the rider is heading downward. Let's fill in our final corner. Negative position means below the surface of the water, and negative velocity means moving downward, so now our jet rider is diving to the depths of the sea. If we plot that position as a function of time, we see that y is getting farther below the t-axis with time. And the velocity graph looks like the velocity graph we had last time, a constant negative. So putting all this together, we can see that a positive position means above the surface of the water, a negative position means below the surface of the water, positive velocity means moving upward, and a negative velocity means moving downward. So while the sign of all of these vectors determines the direction, the meaning of that direction is different for position compared to velocity.